probably still believe it. It doesn't look like they're getting any closer to it.
All right, so let's say now you got this immunity deal with the chief financial officer of the Trump Organization. Where do you think that is going?
I think it's going just where I thought it was going when they gave Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson immunity in the Clinton email server scandal. We didn't know what that was about when we heard about it, and later on we found out it was rather limited immunity just about their devices. I don't know what these two gentlemen, Mr. Pecker and the CFO from the Trump Organization, are cooperating with, but I don't think just because they have immunity, we can expect that they're going to, that they're rolling on the president and creating some kind of a wave of charges against him. I'm willing to sit back and wait. I'm not getting too excited about those immunities.
All right, the Pecker one is the one that gets a lot of attention because apparently the National Enquirer has this vault full of stories and issues that involve Donald Trump going back many, many years. What did you think of that and where they're going with the immunity deal for him?
I don't know. It's very interesting to think that Mr. Pecker's vault would be totally and completely filled with Donald Trump material when National Enquirer covers everyone from space aliens to Hollywood, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. My feeling is, that vault might be interesting. It also might be empty. I don't think that Donald Trump is the only topic Mr. Pecker was covering over there. But, I mean, let's just face it. I mean, in my opinion, Neil, this is really getting completely wrapped around the axle of personal peccadillos. I mean, and in my mind, they were using personal money to address a personal issue that mattered a lot to the president personally. And to me, that doesn't sound like a campaign finance violation.
Well, of course, many prosecutorial investigations have veered off course. We've mentioned many times on this show, I think you and I were chatting about it. The Clinton investigation started on real estate deals and transactions and ended up with the discussion of an intern and address. So stranger things have happened. But this appears to be maybe going in that same sort of off-court way, but it is what it is. Where do you think this goes? The president continues to call it a witch hunt, that he's being treated unfairly. What's your gut read on this?
Well, I think I think you hit it on the head. These special prosecutors, may end up with a vaunted theory of Russian collusion or bank fraud or whitewater, but they always end up in the president's pants for some reason. I don't understand. They can't find anything, so they go to the personal foibles with interns and porn stars. I think America is rather tired of this, and I think, just as your previous guest said, I don't think that we should be following these kinds of procedures for the next special prosecutor. It may be a little bit too late, as Rand Paul said, but I think this needs to be changed. And I think also at this time, the president is facing a really difficult decision to make, and that is how he's going to clean out Main Justice. Because the folks who were appointed to Main Justice were really trying to stop him from being president, and then nowadays trying to push him out. They've managed to clean out Main Justice somewhat, but the president's got to do more, and that includes, I think, by this time, Attorney General Sessions.
Do you think the president moves to fire him after the midterms?
I don't advise the president. We don't speak, but I got to tell you, if I were to advise the president, I think I'd make an announcement that, demand that all the documents that Congress has requested be returned to Congress unredacted completely, every single thing they asked for. And if Justice doesn't do that, you fire Sessions and give the next person in line 72 hours to do the same thing, and keep firing them until they turn over the documents that are required by Congressional Oversight Authority. I believe there's a lot behind those redacted comments.
But if you were to fire, I understand where you're coming from. I just want to be clear, because another guest had raised this with me. If you were to fire Sessions, let's say with him, Rosenstein, you could have like a Nixon Saturday Night Massacre on your hands, right?
Right, I suppose you could, but we see some senators like Lindsey Graham coming around to the idea that the president deserves to have whatever cabinet secretary he desires. And we also know that Attorney General Sessions has nothing to do with the Mueller investigation at this point. He's made sure of that himself. I'm not quite certain you could paint firing the Attorney General Sessions himself as some kind of a way to commit obstruction on the Mueller investigation. What we need are those documents that they've been hiding and resisting and redacting before they give them to Congress. Congress wants them. They deserve them by law. This is a constitutional requirement. The Department of Justice has got to stop stonewalling, stop keeping this secret, so we can find out exactly what Maine Justice was doing in the run-up to the presidential election to stop Donald Trump.
Michael, good seeing you again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Neil.
Michael Caputo, the former Trump campaign advisor, Buffalo, New York. I want to bring Larry Sabato into this, of course, the political presidential historian, professor extraordinaire. So much to get into here, Larry, because this is the week that the president has said, in light of all these developments, if Democrats are sort of notching this up to impeach me, be careful what you wish for, because there goes the bull market. What did you think of that?
I doubt it. I didn't see much of an effect when Bill Clinton was under impeachment. And if you go back actually to Nixon, there was an effect for a while. But when the new president, Gerald Ford, came in, people were so relieved it buoyed the economic side as well. So I don't think that's it at all. I think impeachment is a bad strategy for the Democrats for lots of reasons. But I don't buy that explanation that everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket if Trump is impeached.
I'm wondering whether Bill Clinton avoided that fate, not only based on the idea that people, certainly in the Senate, debated whether, what he was charged of and lying about an affair with an intern warranted a high crime and misdemeanor, but obviously he staved off impeachment. But was he also helped by the fact the economy was doing very, very well, something that Richard Nixon did not enjoy, that it compounded the bad environment for him? This president, too, enjoys a good economic environment. Does that come into play?
I think it comes into play, but much more important is partisanship. The question I have for you and everybody else, Neil, is why would you go through this process of impeachment, which is easy if your party has a majority in the House and you want to impeach a president? Why would you go through this when you know for certain that it will fail in the Senate? The Republicans knew for certain they couldn't get 67 votes in the Senate when they impeached Bill Clinton. How stupid was that? Democrats would be making the same stupid mistake if they followed the same practice, because even if the Republicans lost the Senate, they'd have 48 or 49 seats. You're not going to get to 67 votes to oust a president, and especially in good times, as you're suggesting.
I'm just wondering whether they really care. There's a rabid part of the party that just says, no, go for him, go for him. We don't think he's duly elected. We don't think he should be there. We're going to get him out of there, not thinking that through, because to your point, even the Democratic leadership is saying go slow on this sort of talk. We think, A, it hurts us in the midterms, and B, it's going nowhere, especially given the dynamics you discussed, like getting 2/3 of the Senate to go along.
Yeah, if you're saying that the activists don't listen to reason, and that's true on both sides, Neil, I'm going to give you the award of the week for most accurate statement, because they don't care about the practicalities.
If the division is such, and this investigation potentially has veered into other areas, I have no idea, but we've got a lot of smart folks who follow this who think it has. Play this out for me, how these months ensue.
Well, of course, you have the election, and we'll see whether Democrats gain a majority, and how large is the majority. If it's a couple of seats, then it would be even more foolish to try impeachment. If it's a substantial number of seats, I still don't think it will happen, because you're going to have enough Democratic representatives who realize that if their term, the next 2 years, if they're in charge, if their term is defined by impeachment instead of an agenda that is positive and relates to things the American people want and need, then they're going to be in power for 2 years. So, in the end, most people in politics choose continuance in office. That's the usual goal.
Yeah. I'm interested, finally picking your professor brain here. I mean, you work with a lot of young students, young people. I'm wondering, regardless of their political persuasion, I mean, does this disenchant them? Does this are they cynical? I mean, you've worked with many classes and kids over the years. You've seen shifts in opinion in presidencies and Congresses. What's their mood?
Look, it's easy for anybody in this day and age to get cynical. You don't have to be young, but you're right. Young people tend to be more idealistic and therefore perhaps more open to a degrading of that high degree of optimism and idealism. If I were to read their mood, I would say that, they're not happy for lots of different reasons, but there's nothing unusual about that. It rarely happens that young people get excited about politics and move into it or turn out at a high rate. But, my slogan in class for decades has been politics is a good thing. That doesn't mean every aspect of politics is a good thing, but overall, we have the worst possible system except for all the others, as Winston Churchill apparently didn't say, but we attribute it to Winston Churchill anyway.
That's fine. It works. So do you, Professor. Always good seeing you, my friend. Thank you for coming in on a Saturday.
No problem, Neil. Thank you.
All right, when we come back here, Antonin Scalia, I wonder what he would make of what's going on right now at Kavanaugh, and reports here that they want to drag this out and maybe delay his Supreme Court hearings. His son Chris is here with some ideas.
And I hear about a blue wave. I say, why is there a blue wave? We are doing better now with jobs. Today, there are more people working than at any time ever in the history of our country. So I don't think there's going to be a blue wave. I hope there's a red wave.
All right, well, the polls can be wrong. The polls are talking about this blue wave. Of course, the polls said one thing in 2016, and it worked out differently. The polls actually nationally on the popular vote were right back then. But what people forget, and what the president got as a shrewd campaigner back then, is that this is a state-by-state electoral vote push. And on that measure, going into some of those key battleground states, the president turned it around for himself and won. Now, in those battleground states, like in Pennsylvania and Illinois, and where trade issues have become a big issue, Republicans are facing an uphill battle, not across the board, but in a lot of places here, which means that's what you should be looking at, and not necessarily looking at national numbers, because that will tip key House races, and in other words, maybe be a signal that the House could or might not change hands. Fox News contributor Kat Timpf is here, Democratic strategist Capri Cafaro, and Republican strategist Jen Kearns. Capri, you and I were briefly chatting during the break, and this issue came up about Democrats pushing impeachment. We've had a number of analysts on both sides saying for them that might be a big mistake. You say?
I do agree. I think that it is a big mistake, and for a number of reasons. I mean, number one, Donald Trump won a lot of middle-of-the-road traditional Democrats. So in order for Democrats to win seats that are potentially pickups, like the ones that, across the country that are being competitive, they need to make sure that they bring those Democrats back into the fold that voted for Donald Trump. Those people are not going to be particularly excited about, an impeachment press. Number two,
even if they gain the House, and once they're in there.
If they gain the House and they're in there, you also have to remember, if they do it, it's because they are actually also winning swing and more moderate districts. As you mentioned, Neil, this is a case-by-case, district-by-district, state-by-state, an issue-by-issue race, whether it is a general election or a midterm election. And so those folks, if they want to win in 2020, trying to vote Donald Trump on impeachment is not going to help them win re-election.
And do they realize it's not like they get President Hillary Clinton if they do impeach him, right? They get President Pence, who is even more conservative than Donald Trump is. So I really don't understand
said he's
what
the
this
president without the tweets. So.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
All right. So the president is saying, I don't even understand why this is happening. The economy's on fire, everything. What's going on here? What is going on?
Well, look, Democrats like Capri are very smart here. The reason the Democrats have changed their tune on the impeachment argument is because it does not poll well. If you look at a recent Quinnipiac poll, the popularity alone of, say, special counsel Robert Mueller has been down about 10 points. It's ironic that we're even polling the popularity of a special counsel, but that's the media.
But it has picked up a little bit. You're quite right. There's a separate poll that was out last week that showed that Americans still wanted to wrap it up, right?
Right. But you look at the number of Democrats is still pretty high, about 79% that would like to impeach Trump. But the independent voters here are the key, and those are going to be key in those states you mentioned.
Can I bring
and that overall number of people who would like for Trump to be impeached is actually down 10 points as well. So that is moving in his favor.
In the midterm elections, I think, obviously, we always talk about how important the independents are. And frankly, the number when people say, well, there are more independents that are, registered than Democrats or Republicans, that belies the actual numbers. People may identify with one party or another. Regardless of that, the independents, people that are maybe not crazy about what Democrats are doing right now and not crazy about Trump, they have to make the decision. Do we want to vote for Democrats simply because we believe that it's necessary to place a check neck on Donald Trump in the last 2 years of his presidency. I think that's where this comes in. And, we've seen a bunch of polling saying, AP just came out with a poll basically saying that Trump's numbers are great on the economy, but basically not good on anything else. But as we all know, polls aren't necessarily always the best indicator.
And in a midterm, an economy might not help you, right? I mean, Barack Obama had a good economy in 2014. Of course, there was the hangover, the health care law and all of that. His party still lost seats. So midterm is a little different. If you're happy with the economy and all, you're less inclined to go running out to polls because you're happy, right?
Right. Well, going out to the polls, let's just face it, is kind of boring. It's not the most fun thing you can do with your day. You have to wait in line, and there's not even anything fun at the end of the line.
I totally disagree with you.
Yeah, I think that it's boring. I still do it. I still do it.
It
It's
is
still
the
important
core
to
of our
do.
democracy.
It is, but it's hard to motivate people, and you see that when you look at the polls. Voter enthusiasm is actually higher than it's been in the past for both parties, but it is a little bit higher among Democrats. So I think that is going to be the biggest struggle, is trying to convince people to go out and vote.
Real quick, do you think the House switches hands? Do you think it happens?
It'll be close. I think it's too close to call. But I tell you what's not boring.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, yeah. I tell you what's not boring is having enough money in your pocket to pay for your kids'
Fair
braces.
enough. Capri, is it going to happen?
More than crumbs.
I think that it's more likely that they flip the Senate than the House.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So.
Wow.
I think it probably happens, but maybe by a small margin.
That's interesting. The Senate. All right, guys, we have a lot more coming up on this. And the fallout, if this happens the way they think it's going to happen. All right, Hurricane Lane is now Tropical Storm Lane. Still a doozy, still a lot of rain, still a lot of wind, and potentially still a lot of damage. Fox News correspondent Adam Housley now in Maui, Hawaii. Adam.
Yeah, Neil, Tropical Storm Lane is soon to be Tropical Depression Lane, they believe, by early afternoon here, Hawaii time. In the meantime, the storm has been sitting off just south of the islands and battering the parts of the islands throughout the last few days, specifically the big island of Hawaii, which is about 30 miles or so to my right, to my east, basically where I'm standing. The video that's been coming in there for the last couple of days is unbelievable when you look at the east side of the island, which is where Hilo is located, and the volcanoes are right down the middle of the island, basically splitting it in half. On that east side, which is generally the wet side anyway, they've gotten in some cases over 36 inches of rain. The rain coming down and swelling everything, flooding, mudslides. It's been quite a few days for the folks in Hilo, and rescues continue there. The good news, the rain is dying down some, but that rain still, and the effects of it will be known for some time there in Hilo, which has really taken the brunt of the storm. Back here on Maui, again, 30 or so miles to the west of and north a bit of Hawaii, we've had coincidentally brush fires. There are two, in fact, I can smell them from where I'm standing right now. They're on the north side and west side of the island, near another popular place for people to go on vacation. It seems like they're getting a handle on that. The rain hasn't come down as much as they would like in that area, but those two brush fires, coincidentally in the middle of a possible hurricane, which started the fire started yesterday, has been quite remarkable. As all this goes, there's still the chance that you could get more rain and more flooding. And when you talk to the governor, when you talk to the mayors here on the islands, they'll tell you, don't let your guard down.
I would just like to emphasize that there still is the potential for flash flooding and rain damage due to Lane.
Mother Nature is unpredictable. We dodged a bullet. Doesn't mean it's over. We're going to have rain and wind and local flooding, and we need to be vigilant, and we don't want to let all our guard down.
Yeah, they did dodge a bullet in some places, Neil. I mean, that's the issue here. The islands, the way they're spread out, the way they're turned, the way the volcanoes and mountains sit, it really depends on where you were. Again, on the Big Island, 30 miles to my right, where Kona's located, they got a couple of inches of rain. Just over the hills on the Hilo side is where they got the 30 inches of rain. So really quite a difference. And there's still bands breaking off. We've gotten some heavy rain here this morning, a massive rain that'll come down for half an hour and then go away. And the good news is that allows it to come down the hill. The worry is when it stays and rains for some time. So we'll keep watching this for you, Neil. The good news, this thing is broken down to a tropical storm, soon to be a tropical depression. Neil.
Thank you, my friend. Be safe yourself. Adam Housley in Hawaii. I want to take you live right now to Dublin, Ireland. The president is, the pontiff, the Pope, I should say, is there. This is the first trip by a Pope to Ireland in 39 years. It comes at a very tough time for the Catholic Church and world right now, and reports of scandals dating back decades. The Pope is taking this head on as he travels in his Pope-mobile throughout Ireland. This will be a 2-day visit. He has acknowledged the abuse that has been rampant in the church in the past. He also went on to say the abuse of young people by members of the church can never be tolerated and will not be tolerated, and our failure to address these repugnant crimes will not be allowed. He said that he will be meeting with victims and victims' families, that this will not be swept under the rug, and that the Catholic Church is vital to the well-being of mankind, and those who have been forgotten by the church and abused in the past by the church will now be dealt with head-on by the church. The Pope in Ireland. More after this.